I'm Leo Sayer, and you are watching The Jeremy White Show. Rock on, Jeremy!
Hey, what's up? It's Jeremy White. Welcome back to my channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to get more cool stuff like this. The Jeremy White Podcast is available on demand wherever you stream, with more than 50 episodes, including interviews with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley from Kiss, Joe Elliott and Phil Collins from Def Leppard, New Kids on the Block, Rick Astley, Bonnie Tyler, Alessia Cara, Jaden, and a whole lot more. Make sure you subscribe and like today, and get the Jeremy White Podcast wherever you stream.
Celebrating the 45th anniversary of Endless Flight, released in 1976. We're going to be getting the lowdown on pretty much all the deep and dirty secrets of recording this record. Came on November 5th, 1976, produced by Richard Perry, and pretty much he had every musician possible play on this record too, which we're going to talk all about. Welcome to the show, Mr. Leo Sayer. There he is, everybody.
Nice to meet you. How you doing, guys?
Good.
Oh, we're great.
And I have to say, growing up for me in the 70s and 80s, your music was everywhere. And I was a big follower of Billboard magazine. And you were in that every week. I mean, every month there was a Leo Sayer story.
It was a good run all the way from 1973 in the UK and in Europe, and then 1974 in America and Canada, all over the States. It kind of started, I guess, with The Show Must Go On, the first album, Silver Bird, which got a lot of attention because I dressed as a Pierrot. I
saw that, the mime or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a picture there in the background. I think we could just about see. There he is.
Oh yeah,
somewhere there. Oh yeah. And
I actually pulled out that picture yesterday. I was gonna throw it up for us, but I figured, let's just talk about it.
Well, the idea behind it was that when I was growing up, there was this wonderful movie that I love called Les Enfants du Paradis, the Children of Paradise, and a French film. And there was this wonderful mime in it who played the part exactly like that, a classic Pierrot from the French theater. So the whole Pierrot image came because I had this character that I really loved as a college kid growing up, in art school, and he was an actor in a French movie called Les Enfants de Paradis, which was filmed around about the end of the Second World War, and this character I just loved. He personified everything for me. And what he could say in mime, in gestures, no words, was to me absolutely incredible. So he became a hero. And when I went to do the first album cover, to do the shoot for the first album cover, the photographer, who was the cousin of Roger Daltrey of The Who I'd, written some songs for, which kind of launched me in the first place, he turned around and he said, "Look, I've done these photographs. Have a look at this." And I looked at the wall, and he said, at the same time, he was saying, "So how do you see yourself?" And I said, "Like that." And I pointed to the Pierrot, and he said, "Well, that's a French guy called Jerome. He's still here, So why don't tomorrow you put on his costume and I'll take a picture?" And that was it,
Wow.
So that was the first thing that happened. And of course, we came to America, played all these clubs, from Memphis to Philadelphia to the Bottom Line in New York, and in Los Angeles, the Troubadour, and we set it all on fire, I think. So Three Dog Night covered that song and had a hit, and that's, I think, where it all started.
Yeah. And of
course,
course,
you dressed up as the mime not because you wanted to be in the band Kiss so bad. It was
but Genesis and Peter Gabriel, Genesis and Peter Gabriel were doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Kiss hadn't even started yet, in fact, at that time. They came about a year or so later. But
it was the David Bowie, the Peter Gabriel, and that kind of
and Mark Bolan, the glam guys as well,
like the proper glam guys.
Who can forget Jobriath?
I remember Jobriath. In fact, Def Leppard covered a Jobriath song, believe it or not.
Dead right. Very good.
Yes.
So anyway, so a series of albums went on, and popularity growing in America. And so it was pretty logical for Adam Faith, my manager, and his co-producer, because he was producing it at the time, David Courtney, to well, I mean, they thought that they'd gone far enough. We did a third album, I think. First it was Silverbird, then it was Just a Boy, and then there was 1974, and then there was another year in 1975, and in fact David Courtney wasn't even on that album. So Adam turned around and said, "Look, it's all happening for us in America. We got to find an American producer. I don't think I can really cut this any longer." So a discussion went on, and I chose Jerry Wexler or Tom Dowd, who I was really keen on for being the producer. But Adam somehow found Richard Perry. And I got to say, I wasn't keen on Richard as a choice over Jerry Wexler, because I'm a soul man, really, you know. So I thought that someone like Jerry... Yeah, well, you know, Jerry could really understand what I was doing. So I took some original songs to Richard as well, you know, but he hated them all. So that was kind of it set up a kind of conflict in a way, you know, instantly. And we kind of found a middle ground in Motown music. You know, we both love Motown and soul. And Richard said, "Look, I can get the Motown sound for you if that's what you want, you know, but I really see you, I see you as a voice." I mean, you know, he really loved the voice. And I was thinking, God, I've never taken my voice that seriously, really. I mean, it was always, you know, I would sing my own songs, and the songwriting was what was important to me. So he kind of put me almost instantly at a crossroads where, oh my God, should I just dump this and go back to England, or should I carry on? You know, and it got to arguments and everything. I mean, I was about to leave and literally go back to England, thinking, "Well, it's not going to go anywhere. I just want to do my own songs." And at the last minute, he just turned around and he said, "Look, Leo, don't take the plane. Come to the studio this afternoon. I've got all the musicians here." He must have moved hell and high water, because I think it was the panic of me leaving. He must have phoned everybody and said, "You get here now, or else you never work with me."
I mean, listen, Jeff Porcaro, Ray Parker Jr., Earl Slick, Leland Sklar. I mean, by the way, we spoke to Leland last week, and he said some nice things about you.
Oh, no, he's a beautiful cat. Yeah, he's a good friend. Yep. But listen, it wasn't necessarily all of those musicians immediately there at that time. I remember Ralph McDonald, the conga player. I remember Ray Parker Jr. was there. I believe Jeff was there. But anyway, I walked in straight from dumping my suitcase after going to leave. You know, this is an album that nearly never got started. So I'm dumping my suitcase at the Chateau Marmont Hotel, and I'm going over to the studio thinking, "Oh, let's give it a shot. If not, I'll fly tomorrow." And I walked into the room. You open this door at Studio 55, now a car park.
Studio 54.
Studio 55. It was 5505
there was a
Melrose Avenue.
LA.
What's the studio that's there? Oh God.
Well, there's Sunset Sound. There's
film studio.
Henson Studios. Oh, MGM.
Paramount.
Paramount. So it's now where that studio was built so that Bing Crosby, when he was at Paramount, could go there and, you know, do all his songs and sing them there, and, you know, in the big room. And the studio had the original big lead-lined room, you know, this incredible acoustic space. So if you can imagine, I walk out of the car and, you know, Richard opens the door and says, "Come on in." And one song we've been discussing was "What Becomes of the Broken-Hearted." So as I'm literally walking through the door, the band is playing dum, dum, dum. And I go straight to the mic and I go, "As I walk this land of broken dreams." You know, it was all set up. It was, that was it.
It just
happened.
happened.
From that moment, the album was born. And I just turned around. I mean, I've never worked with musicians of that class before. Got to say, I worked with some good ones, but boy, this was like, whoa, upper level, you know?
Well, you said something really interesting that I wanted to get your thoughts on, because you sort of said, you know, we were looking for an American producer. And what was the difference between, say, a British producer and an American producer at the time?
Oh, God. Well, you know, look at Rod Stewart, okay? Yeah. When he made Atlantic Crossing. Basically, they recorded it a year before I came in. So Rod was always making English albums, you know. I mean, think of Maggie May and those songs with the Faces guys and all of that very British rock thing. The same thing that Elton really had, you know. So all of a sudden he makes this shift, and all of a sudden he's down in Muscle Shoals and he's at Atlantic Studios, and he's working with, you know, the slick. Let's say at that time in America, musicians were slick. Whereas musicians in England were pretty straight, you know. They played it very much by the bar, but American musicians swung, you know. You only have to listen to Steely Dan or something to realize they
played with feel.
Exactly. Boz Scaggs, you know, all those guys, the bands, the musicians in those bands, you know, that's what they had. Plus, you know, Richard had this handle on guys like Ray Parker Jr., who'd been in the Motown ranks. You know, I mean, Ray's on just about every Temptations song that you've ever heard, and Diana Ross and the Supremes, and worked with Stevie, was Stevie's guitarist for years touring, you know. So he had a handle on, you know, who he could grab. I mean, Jeff Porcaro was a young session guy. Of course, his dad was a famous percussionist, Joe Porcaro, from Frank Sinatra's band. Likewise, David Paich, Marty Paich is the arranger, was the arranger of the live conductor rather of Frank Sinatra's band. Yeah. So these are the boys that have kind of come up from their father's genes, you know. And then also, I mean, he was able to add some English elements to that. James Newton Howard, who is now a very famous music soundtrack producer and art and writer, of course, on Golden Pond, etc., he was the synthesizer player in Elton's band at the time that we used him. And he just arrived in LA and decided to stay. So he is all over the album as well, an Englishman. You've also got Paul Buckmaster, who was also from the Elton school, you know, who's arranging a lot of the tracks.
Wow.
You know, we had quite a few English people there as well, you know, in there. So I think that we were kind of creating something as rather like what Rod had done just before us, you know, of using this kind of British feel. I mean, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? You know, you use the British feel guys, you know. I mean, look at Badfinger. They were the more an English band than you'd ever know, and yet most of their records were cut in America, you know. So
and another band Def Leppard covered, by the way.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Supertramp's a good example of a band that worked in America, but it was very British, you know. So anyway, so here was I. Now I being an ex-blues man, because I was originally started off as a blues harmonica player, and you know, just singing in blues bands. I mean, I was just walking into the territory that I knew. I could groove with people like Ray Parker and Larry Carlton and those guys. I mean, you know, Larry Carlton took me up the street to play with B.B. King, you know, so we were talking the same language, you know, and Jeff and I became, well, so close, great buddies. We lived just down the street from each other, and we used to chase each other in cars to the studio every day, you know, so we all became really close. And Richard put together this incredible band that locked me in. I mean, you know, whether I was going to write songs on the album in that early stage, I didn't know, but I knew I wanted to be aboard because I was going to learn some shit, you know, I was going to learn some stuff.
Right.
It was, you know, this is like going to school, you know, it was great.
Totally, yeah. Especially working with that producer and working with those musicians. I mean, it's kind of like the school of rock in reality, in a way.
It is.
Yeah. And here's another element to it. I mean, Richard was a great song finder, as he'd proved with Art Garfunkel and Ringo Starr and many of the people he produced before. He really had this kind of ear for songs, and he had a couple of girls as well working with him who basically would go out and collect material. I used to get boxes of cassettes. So you know, that was one side of it. Another side was that he persuaded me to get writing with some American guys. There was a young guitarist called Johnny Vastano that Richard was trying to develop his career. And, you know, he and I sat down, we got on fantastically. He taught me all about baseball. I taught him all about soccer. And we just kind of got on like a house on fire. So as well as writing some good songs, I Hear the Laughter, which is on there, and got the cover here. I'm just looking at it, and I think We Fell in Love Too Fast, written with Johnny. I also kind of got introduced to Barry Mann. Now, Barry Mann wrote You Lost That Loving Feeling. Oh, my God, what a songwriter. Blame It on the Bossa Nova, you know, all these incredible songs. So to be sitting in a room with that man, I mean, you know, I was just pinching myself. I mean, Barry was an incredible character. Cynthia Weil, his wife as well, was a great lyricist, great songwriter. So, you know, I stepped into writing with Barry, and that was just joy. I mean, we went up to Screen Gems Publishing, which was a kind of an adjunct of the Brill Building that you know of course, in New York. So I would walk into a room, and coming out the next room beside me was Carole King, you know, and coming out of the next room, the other end of the corridor was Neil Diamond, you know, and everybody just, you know, there were no sort of rock star. I mean, Neil used to come, hey, Leo, come and have a coffee, man. You know, so you were just hanging out with creative people, not rock stars, if you know what I mean. Right. So it was a different kind of vibe. Yeah. So all of that was going on. There was a great, we took a long time over the album, you see. We took about 3 or 4 months to complete it. And I think that was, you know, part of Richard's plan was to really kind of almost ease me into an American lifestyle, you know, while I was doing it, which worked, because I could really confer with everybody I was working with, from the technical guys to the musicians, to the arrangers, you know, people like Gene Page, who's kind of, oh my God, the man behind all the Barry White hits and all of those Motown and Philadelphia hits, you know, was writing our screen charts. And these were all characters. And I think Richard was great because he wanted me to be on same level terms with these guys, if you can understand that. So it wasn't like, you know, we're producing Leo. It was more like, hey, here's Leo, you know, what's he think of this? Yeah. So I was really involved in this record, you know.
And it's interesting you said that, you know, he wanted you to be involved, and more importantly, like, it's funny you said that it was such a creative atmosphere to be there at that time, and it's like I'm sure totally. that totally contributed to the sound and vibe of the record.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Boz Scaggs had just recorded with Jeff and David Hungate and some of the guys who were making up Toto at that time, and I was working with them, so I would kind of meet up with Boz, you know, in a little coffee shop, and nice. Boz was like me. Look, I have to say, and I hope people don't get offended here, but a lot of the guys were taking drugs. You know, they were at that time.
Everybody was. It was the 70s.
There was a lot of weed and white powder along, man. It was right. It was kind of a big part of the scene. So me and Boz were totally straight. So we would get together and have tea afternoons, you know. But the lovely thing was I could play some of the cassettes to Boz, and he'd go, yeah, I think it's a bit off the wall, that one. Or he'd say to me, I think you're on the right lines there. So Boz became my secret advisor for the album, which was fantastic. Wow. And a great friend, you know.
Wow, that's amazing. So, I mean, to be fair, had you played him, you know, the demo for You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, had Boz said, I think that's, whatever, would you dig it?
Well, actually, that's the strange. Well, out of all of the songs, I mean, that's the most unusual on the album because it came out via a jam session, really. I mean, this was all, you know, into me and Jeff Beccaro driving our cars from Kirkwood Avenue. I had a house right across the road from the Canyon store, which is literally on Laurel Canyon and Kirkwood Corner. I was at the house on the corner opposite the Canyon County store. Wow. And Jeff lived about 7 houses up next door to Jenny Agutter. I remember that very well because I used to try and go up there and see Jenny Agutter. Anyway, nice. So he lived just up the street. So he'd kind of drive down and meet me. I didn't actually drive at the time. I had a driver. So David would drive me in the little Cadillac, and Jeff would be behind in his Corvette. And, you know, we'd mosey on down. And every time we got to the stoplights, it would kind of wind down the windows and check out what each of us was listening to until we got to the same station, usually, KMET or something like that. And we just listened. And when we got in, it was like, so what did you hear? And I'd say, what did you hear? And this day we came in, we'd both been listening to a brand new record by Shirley and Company, Shame, Shame, Shame.
Wow.
Which had this incredible high vocal from, I think it was a guy, but singing, it was Shirley and Company, and this outrageous record. And I loved singing falsetto because I grew up as a choir boy, and that's what I used to do. I'd do the, all those beautiful high solo voices. I was a soloist, in the Roman Catholic cathedrals and things like that when I was a kid.
Wow.
So I had that voice, but I'd never had a chance to really use it. And I thought, shit, wouldn't it be interesting to use that on a record? Oh, wow. What a thing to do. So here we are. And I kind of, here I had a chance to do it. When we were just jamming, it was in between track. I think we might have been recording When I Need You for the 115th take or something like that. And I think they had to change tapes.
Wow.
That's what happened. And so guys said, yeah, you guys just talk, stay there, don't lose the vibe, And so I turned around, I spoke to Jeff. He's in the next booth to me. I said, hey, Jeff, what about that groove of that song this morning? He said, yeah, like this. And I started, yeah, God, I can't. And I start singing like that. Ray Parker picks up, starts playing the riff. John Barnes is playing this really groovy Rhodes piano. Willie Weeks is on bass, walking the bass. Suddenly, over in the control room, not known by us, Richard is throwing tapes across the room. Put that on now, record this now.
Wow.
So a jam session was being recorded, without us even thinking about it. In fact, at the end of it, we kept thinking, how long can we keep playing like this? And we're just, throwing this fun down, waiting to be stopped. And eventually Richard said, okay, guys, that's great, but let's get on. Take 115 When I Need You, back to work.
Wow.
and 3 weeks later to the day, after I'd been asking him, I said, Richard, we need a centerpiece for the album. What? And he's saying the same thing, what song do you reckon? He said, well, I reckon we've got it with this. And I'm up in his room and he puts the tape machine on and I didn't even know he'd recorded it. And there it was. And, it's a groove.
Wow.
It was really rough, but boy, it had something. And no words, just me going, yeah, that tune.
Singing the melody.
And Ray with the lick, and the walking bass, and Jeff with this fantastic groove, shuffle kind of groove. So, I just had to agree, boy, let's finish this. So, sorry, my earpods falling out.
That's okay.
In excitement.
That's incredible, though, that, it was just like you guys jamming in the middle of, swapping tapes and became a Grammy Award-winning song.
But that's how great songs are made. Now we spend so much time
often they
picking apart and oh my God, it was so good back in the day. You just go in and you get a vibe. Let me I want to take you just real quick to the review.
Can I just finish that story though and tell you?
Sorry.
3 weeks later, I'm saying 3 weeks later, it was after that jam that Richard says, I go straight downstairs and there's a visitor to the studio, a guy called Vinnie Poncia. And Vinnie, later produced Kiss and a lot of albums. But up to that time, he'd been co-songwriting, to help out Richard Starkey, Ringo Starr's album. So, when he came up with some ideas for that, and Richard said, hey, he can help you with the chorus because we're got to find a chorus. That's what I was saying. And so, we just went to the piano, put on a tape machine. Poor old Vinny had a bad back at the time. He had to go and see his chiropractor 20 minutes later or so. So we had 5 minutes at the piano. And we both said to each other, if we can't get it in 5 minutes, it's not a hit. But we did. We got we got the transition, just slight change of key, big shift up. found "You Make Me Feel Like Dancing." Whoa, that works,
Wow.
And so the whole song, if you time it all together, took 20 minutes.
Damn.
20 minutes to create.
That's incredible.
And years later, there's these guys in England called the Automobile Association, and they fix your car if you've broken down or something like that.
Yeah.
And they used to they had a TV ad, and the guy used to say, he was the head of the company. He'd say, if Leo Sayer can write "You Make Me Feel Like Dancing" in 20 minutes, I think you can pick up a car in half an hour.
Wow.
So it's kind of lots of legendary stories. But sorry, back to your question.
That's actually really funny. You're changing music and changing automobile industry at the
Sorry,
same
Mitch.
time.
Yeah, no worries. And of course, Vinnie Poncia, I Was Made for Loving You, the Kiss Unmasked album. And
Yeah,
that
man,
was
absolutely.
the Unmasked album is when I first interviewed Gene Simmons at the ripe age of 11 years old. So that
Wow.
I was at Ocoin Management, and I was in this big room with all the gold records, and so that was a great moment. But what I want to ask you I want you to react to what I'm going to read here for you in a second, because I went back to Billboard of November 13th, 1976, and I pulled out their review of your album.
Oh, those guys.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear your reaction to what they had to say. Now, it's just a little paragraph, so I'm going to quickly read it. It says, Warner has made it clear that Sayer is a top priority push artist for the label this fall. And the product here, which of course is Endless Flight, is a strong bet to expand Sayer's popularity to a more consistent plateau. The single, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, is shooting towards the top 30, and its semi-disco feel is right on contemporary. Isn't that great? You were contemporary back in 76.
Yeah, man.
Complete with swoop-ups to a remarkable falsetto range. The teaming of virtuoso producer Richard Perry with virtuoso singer-writer Sayer was inspired, to say the least. Huh? We love that. One immediately apparent switch is that an interesting variety of songwriters has been pulled in for material rather than relying exclusively on Sayer's always interesting, but sometimes quirkily offbeat co-writing. So you're quirky, or quirkily, as they wrote.
Double-handed compliment.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll finish your last sentence here. As can be expected from a Sayer LP, there are many different styles of song delivered with vast energy and a voice that can seemingly do anything. Best cuts are You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, I Hear the Laughter, Magdalena, When I Need You, Hold On to My Love. And to dealers out there, Sayer has always been an impressive artist, and here he's more commercial than ever.
Wow.
Well,
I never saw that review. Yeah, that's pretty good, though.
Well, I'll send it to you if you want, but it's not bad.
Beautiful.
But what do we think about that in terms of?
Yeah, no, it's well.
Go ahead.
No, it's true. And if I can, read your mind. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think that that was the intention. Richard wanted to introduce me to a wider audience, so therefore a wider palette of styles than maybe I'd presented up to now. Sure, I'd been a very quirky writer. A lot of the songs like Long Tall Glasses, and One Man Band, they'd all had some kind of quirky moonlighting. They'd all had some kind of quirky angle to The Show Must Go On, and I think he wanted to kind of move it into the mainstream, and he thought that I could handle that. And he was right. I got it immediately that we started working on, songs like I Hear the Laughter and How Much Love. I mean, they're very simple messages in the song. And here you've got a songwriter who likes to be complex lyrically, so he's kind of traced me down to something quite simple. And I think that was very effective. And that was the appeal of the album, that I think from what I heard, families would say, I like this track, I like that track, the daughter likes this track, son likes this track, and granddad loves this track. So it had a little bit of everything. I mean, it ends with Nigel Olsson probably playing the heaviest drums he's ever played in his life with the Andrew Gold song, Endless Flight, with Paul Buckmaster, this mountainous string track, which is completely different to Reflections, say covering the Diana Ross song, or When I Need You, so there are plenty of contrast. I must tell you that Richard was very nervous about When I Need You. I wasn't. I was given a box of tapes, and When I Need You was in there with Albert Hammond singing. And I mean, since then, Albert and we've written so many songs together. But this was my first hearing of this song, and I was parted at the time from my ex-wife, who was back in England. We couldn't afford to bring her out, so I was trying to talk to her on the transatlantic phone.
Couldn't afford to bring her out.
Yeah, no. At that time, I mean, listen, I was pretty much held down by my damn managers and everything like that. I was living on a pittance. I mean, that's another story for another day. But yeah, these things happen.
I read those stories. It was quite an adventure.
Yeah, quite a lot of us were, in that wearing that coat and tie. I'll tell you. Yep. Yeah. So nobody escaped without being ripped off. Let's put it like that. But anyway, she would be at home and I'd be trying to talk to her. You get this awful, in those days anyway, you get this awful delay. Hello? You hear your own voice. So every time you're trying to say something, it's, oh my God.
I remember that. It was bouncing off the satellite.
Yeah, it's like doing a radio interview with someone who's on the phone, So you get that recoil, or recall. And so I could never say the words that I really wanted to say to tell her how I loved her and how I missed her. So I just took the lyrics of When I Need You, this song that I've just found, and read it off the sheet. Miles and miles of empty space in between you, between us. A telephone can't take the place of your smile, but we'll be traveling forever, Janice. Oh, it's cold out, but hold out and do like I do. And she started crying. And I thought, damn, this is a hit. This is a cross, fertilization, long distance love, estranged people, kind of, I don't know, it could be a COVID song, couldn't it, when you think about it? It's something that kind of reached across the void of people who can't physically be together.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's a smash. Richard said, nah, it's cheesy. I said, no, Richard, we got to do it.
Well,
and we tried it. We tried it with a lot of different versions. We even had Booker T and the MGs in the studio one day, and we cut it, like I've been loving you, like a Otis Redding, So when I need you, and we tried every way. We went right back to the original, and in the end, of course, and that's the version that comes out. Yeah. The single had Bobby Keys playing sax on it, which wasn't originally on the album. On the first pressings of the album, because we hadn't even thought of that idea. But Bobby was on the road with me. Bobby, who's no longer with us, sadly. But Bobby was playing sax on the road and developed this fantastic solo for the song, which, wow, Richard came up and heard us play, and he just said, right, straight back to the studio. Let's put that on for the single. And that's why Bobby's on there, but Bobby's not credited in the credits on the record.
Well, he's credited online. I mean, he's right on there with Jeff Porcaro and Willie Weeks on bass, and so he got his credit later on. But I mean, that song became a massive hit worldwide. I mean, it was #1 in the UK singles chart, and I mean, it's strange that in the UK, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing didn't get to #1, but When I Need You did. But in America, it was fantastic to have back-to-back #1s. Was just an incredible thing for me. It was very beautiful. I was in New York when You Make Me Feel Like Dancing. We went to #1. It was meteoring up the charts. It was bulleting so fast. It was ridiculous. Wow. And I was in a store, Bergdorf Goodman's. I was up there trying to buy a leather jacket, I think. And somebody in the store saying, hey, there he is. There's the clown. There's the guy. He's at #1. And I didn't even know I was at #1. And I asked somebody else, and this guy said, yeah, man, I just got the charts. You're #1. The charts were a big thing in those days. Yeah. So I go out to the street, and they all saying, there he is. Look, Leo Sayer, he's here, the dancing guy. So I'm put on someone's shoulders,
and carried down Fifth Avenue to the hotel, to the plaza, you know, on
Wow.
somebody's shoulders. It was a most amazing moment. I kind of knew I'd arrived in America then.
It was Leo Mania.
Leo Mania, man.
It was. Listen, I was talking to Peter Frampton the other day, and I went through all the billboards from
You
1970.
name dropper. He's a good friend.
He's a great friend. But I was going through it, and every issue was Leo Sayer, Peter Frampton, Leo Sayer, Peter Frampton, Leo. Every issue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Frampton Comes Alive was a massive album at the time.
yeah, and so
one that we all wanted to beat. Yeah.
and it was just incredible to see. And of course, having lived through that, you know, you make me feel like dancing. I mean, that's right up there with you know, anything that's ever been recorded. So it was a great
It's
time.
amazing. It's amazing how songs also, you know, extend and have their own life. I mean, you know, it got included in Charlie's Angels. You know, it was in that movie. It was in so many different, Ella Enchanted, and so many movies. You know, When I Need You as well. You know, it's been used so many times for cat commercials. My God, just about everything. You know, it's
Well,
like,
I mean, and this might sound strange to you, but 1976 was the Montreal Olympics, and we're from Montreal. So
Yeah.
to me, it's sort of like the Montreal Olympics song, because
I
it ties
know.
into that whole summer vibe of what was going on, you know?
Well, the very next year, I
Well,
was
right.
awarded in the Juno Awards. I was Artist of the Year, and I've still
Wow.
got my Juno Award somewhere
Yeah.
up there. Yeah, this huge, great
Yeah.
big pointed thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flying pyramid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We love the
and-
Flying Pyramid. Now, I mean, I know the
Yeah.
song came out in November, but it to me, when I think back, it just ties into this
Yeah,
one big
yeah.
memory. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Just quickly talk to me about Vinnie Poncia, because obviously he went on and did the Peter Criss solo album, and he did I Was Made for Loving You with Desmond Child. What was it about his songwriting where he could just turn nothing into something? And I'm not saying you had nothing, but where?
yeah. Well, he comes from his alumni, if you like. His music college is street corner singers, you know, doo-wop, all of that. He came from New York, and he basically, you know, I remember meeting up with him in New York. I didn't really ever get to know Vinny that well, but I was playing a gig in New York, and maybe I was doing TV. I might have been doing Saturday Night Live, and get a call at the hotel. Hey, Vinny, it's Vinny, man. Let's get together tomorrow if you've got some time. And I had some time, so I said, yeah, man. So he took me out to Brooklyn, and where he and Richard grew up, you know, and although not at the same time. And he took me to all these singers. You know, we stood on the corner and we listened to some groups, and then we went to a little hotel where I believe the Manhattans were getting together, and yet some other group, I don't know. And he also kind of like, he gave me a list of all the great doo-wop songs, you know, and the great kind of singing group songs, you know, like the Platters, all that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I could understand, you know, where he came from. So he had this musical knowledge that could just spot a melody straight away. Because, you know, the trick with all of those great doo-wop songs, the whole history of doo-wop, is the melody. It's this kind of, you know, the bass part going da 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 da, you know, and the guy on the top going, ooh, you know,
Yeah.
it's all melody. So his trick was, if my trick was lyrics, words. Oh God, my earbuds. Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
Hey, actually, hold on. I can let the dog out because he's been barking. Give me a second.
Yeah.
I'm back. There's a dog as well.
Yeah. Who let the dogs out?
That's a commercial,
Perfect.
isn't it?
Perfect.
There you go.
We can edit that out perfectly. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's driving me crazy.
It's interesting.
I'm pretending you're in a studio, but you're in a pet shop. I know.
Yeah, exactly. It's
I know.
interesting. It's interesting you talk about the doo-wop groups, because it's so funny how they influence so many incredible artists. I mean, I was talking to John Oates from Hall & Oates, and he was talking about how
Oh God,
those
he's totally into it. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
all of those
name
groups
dropper.
they were so influential on like the whole background vocal sound of Hall & Oates. And it's funny you talk about the doo-wop guys, because you think about it, yeah, the melody is so important to all of those groups.
Yeah, look, here's an important thing because, John and Daryl are Philly boys, and,
Yeah.
Philadelphia, that was Gene Page as well, our string writer. And a lot of our backing singers, through those various albums with Richard were from Philadelphia, a lot of great musicians from up that way. And that was the core of those kind of groups. That group singing, was a big, big thing. Dion and those guys, it's all about one ear. That will do.
There you go.
It was all about,
That sound.
that kind of vocal conversation on a record, and I love all that. It's great. But Richard was really into that as well. I mean, he would build the tracks beautifully. I mean, the way that the arrangements came, he was a stickler and so much detail. I mean, we'd do sometimes like 100 takes, and I would sing live on every single one. So I'd insist on singing live. I didn't like doing overdubs too much. I got into that kind of later, but a lot of the vocals on Endless Flight are kind of first takes or takes with the band,
Wow.
Let me ask you this about Endless Flight, because the popularity, as we discussed, was off the charts. In 1977, the Queen has her Jubilee, and you're invited. Probably partially because of the success of Endless Flight.
I've got a little rundown of 77 here I just found just earlier on, and I'm going to try and read it to you. Stateside again, record with Thunder in My Heart, do backing vocals for Stevie Wonder and Donna Summer, do an album playing harmonica for Billy Swan, touring with Bob Marley, have a Grammy for You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, big US tour. At Pine Knob, President Carter comes backstage to say, "Why don't you come down to the house and see me?" I fall off stage in Wisconsin.
I want to talk about that, because you're still suffering from that injury.
Well, they thought I'd ruptured my spleen.
Right.
And it was a very unusual thing. Of course, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing is massive in the charts. And Endless Flight is out, so I'm touring on the back of that record. And we were really selling out some places, it was fantastic, playing some big open
Pine Knob
arenas.
is huge. Pine Knob is 18,000, 20,000.
Yeah. So we're playing the Greek Theater. I've got the poster up there, 2 nights. We played Central Park, 84,000 people as part of the summer festival there. And anyway, we get to Wisconsin, and they built this place called Alpine Valley. And would you believe it's the same place that Stevie Ray Vaughan lost his life at?
Yep.
Wow.
The helicopter crash when he and Clapton were done the gig, and they were leaving afterwards. Yep. In fact, my tour manager was with Stevie in the helicopter, so we lost him as well. So all kind of family we were at that time. But anyway, that's later on. But they just built this place in 77 when we were up there, August, I think it was, somewhere around June, July, or August. Anyway, I leaned against a curtain during Melissa Manchester, my opening act's performance, because I'd arrive late. Usually I used to always sound check every single show, but this one I didn't make it for some reason, doing interviews or something. So I'm up there and I'm leaning against the curtain next to Davey, my monitor guy, and just to hear what the sound's like. And there was no rail behind the curtain. And we're kind of like 25 feet up. So I fell on my back. And I was lying on the ground. Davey jumped down very bravely after me and kind of held my legs together, because if I'd have had a delayed reaction, I could have probably broken my back, So he was very good like that. They took me away in an ambulance. I couldn't obviously do the next 2 shows, but for some reason I managed to get back to play Chicago, wearing some kind of bizarre truss so that I wouldn't, probably
fall apart.
By the way, I love the visual.
Body.
He's doing "You Make Me Feel Like Dancing," sort of walking around like a zombie.
Like alien,
It's like Frankenstein on stage.
Oh, it's the greatest. But that injury has been very serious, because it's affected you, forever.
Well, it didn't really too much at the time. I got over it. Amazing thing. God, I was made of tough stuff, I reckon. But anyway, so look, the story is I get down to Memphis and we're playing the Dixon something arena, Myers Dixon Arena, their big place. And I lock up in the dressing room. Finally, the delayed shock has popped in. So, you know, and I'm in a ball in the dressing room. I can't get out of it. Nobody knows how to get out of it. The audience has already come into the arena. The promoter's kind of like having to cancel because there's no way he can get this tiny little 5'4" ball to stand on his legs and do a show. So they called out for a doctor, and a guy who was an ex-Miami Dolphin football player came in, lovely guy, Michael. And he picked me up and he said, look, leave him with me. There's no way he can work. Let me try and get him back. Give me a couple of days. So everybody agreed, yeah, let's stay in Memphis and let's let this guy. So he took me over to Huntsville, Alabama, over the water, you know. And so we went, 100 miles over to Huntsville. And while I was there, I kept quizzing him all the time, saying, you know, you told me your story and you're an ex-football player, but you know, what are you doing here? And who do you work for? And he said, oh, I got a boss, but I can't tell him. And, you know, kept on like that. And then out of the blue, he handed me a phone and he's over the other side of the room. And I answer the phone and this is Elvis Aaron Presley. You make me feel like dancing. I love your song, Leo. And I just want to say, Michael's been telling you all about, I'm going, this is spoof call. You know, this isn't real. You know, stop it, get out of here. So I look over to Michael and Michael says, it is. And I think I said something like, shit, you know, and Elvis says, please do not use profanity, sir. And, you know, being Elvis, you know, you can't swear in front of Elvis. So anyway, but we got talking and he said, look, what I want you to do, he said, it's very important to me. Will you come over to the house tomorrow? And, you know, Michael says, you've improved, you're much better. Come over to the house. Let's hang for a few days. We don't have to tell anybody. Yeah, just tell your managers you're busy. He said, I could do with some inspiration. He said, and you know, we'll have some fun. Maybe we'll make some music together, you know, and don't tell anybody. He said, you know, don't tell. And so of course not. But you know, the next morning I woke up really excited because I'm going to go to Graceland and meet Elvis. I'm going to hang out with Elvis, for God's sake, me, you know. So I'm so excited, and I turn on. I used to tape off Warner Brothers when I got the Grammy. Gave me a beautiful present, this very rare and unique first edition Sony stereo cassette recorder, pretty advanced for the time. So I'm recording the radio off it, you know, and so I'd record some of the gospel and country and blues and, you know, anything that was on, all the ads and everything. I've still got the tapes now. Nice. And I remember flicking on the button into record at the same moment that said, the singer, Elvis Presley, has been brought dead on arrival into Memphis Baptist State Hospital. We'll be back with more information when we get it. You know, and that was it. That was the announcement of Elvis's death. And Michael came bursting into my room and just said, oh, look, I've got to go. You heard the news. I've got to go. I've got to be with the family. So yeah, he had to go, you know, and he just left me the key. He said, put them on the wheel of the truck outside, you know, and I booked you a cab to the airport, you know, he'll be waiting for you. And I was off. I went off to LA and never thought another thing. And I actually kind of, for many, many weeks, I didn't tell anybody, you know, my association there, because I thought nobody would believe me, you know.
Right.
And I didn't believe it either. And for a long time, I kind of kept it pretty much a secret. But one day, David Foster, you know, the producer of Celine Dion and all his tracks, he came to London, and he came with his girlfriend. And his girlfriend insisted on meeting Leo. So my publisher was friends with David. So, and I knew David anyway, but I mean, I wasn't expecting to see him. So I went to this Chinese restaurant, had dinner with them all. And the girlfriend is the girlfriend of Elvis, the lady who was with him, Ginger Aldrin, who was with him the last night. And she just wanted to tell me how excited Elvis was that he was going to be hanging out with Leo Sayer. He went to bed
Wow.
shouting and saying, Leo's coming, and singing. You make me feel like in an Elvis voice. And she said
Wow.
that was the last time she saw him, because apparently in the middle of the night he called the doctor in and got something, and the rest is the story we all know.
Well,
But
two things.
she just wanted me to know.
Wow.
Jeremy and I were as excited as Elvis to do this interview today, and and by the way,
no.
and I was, and
Let me
I
get my
love the
other
fact that,
earphone for a moment.
Yeah.
and
These
I was just
damn
gonna,
AirPods don't fit.
I know.
and I just got to say, I love the fact that I asked about the Queen, and we ended up with the story about the King. So there you go.
Yeah, they're linked.
That's
It's all
incredible,
royalty.
man. Like, wow. That's such a crazy story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. Some of the
wow.
things that happened to me. I mean, I was just reading this thing of some notes I wrote down, a long time ago for an interviewer, and at the end of 1977, it is fly on a plane first class with Muhammad Ali to LA.
Jesus.
And I'm going, and I kind of remember how it happened, because I used to do some adverts for British Airways, and he'd just come back from one of his last fights in Europe, and was sitting in the plane. And I used to just jump on the plane because, working with British Airways, they'd kind of give me a seat. So they just say, come to the airport, we'll put you on the plane. And usually they'd slip me into first class. It was very luxurious, very nice. Yeah. But this time they said, I'm so sorry, sir. A gentleman has taken over all of first class and doesn't really want any visitors. And me being Flash, I just said, well, tell him who I am.
Yeah.
So she came back with, she said, the gentleman in first class would really like you to sit with him. He's on his own, and it would just be the two of you. I said, oh, great. So I walk in thinking, who the hell is this, the Pope? And it's Ali. My God. And we talked the entire trip, not a wink of sleep. And it ended up with me going and hanging out at a training camp with him the next week in Santa Barbara. We spent quite a few days together. It was a very beautiful thing.
That's incredible. Leo, these stories are insane.
I know. And
well,
listen,
I'm this guy who just happened to be in the right place at the right time so many times in my life.
Yeah.
I've been very, very lucky. Very blessed.
I'm getting a chance to relive my childhood. I mean, between Jimmy Carter, Muhammad Ali, the Queen, the King, Leo Sayer. I mean, all we're missing right now is Olivia Newton-John to walk in behind him, and then we're good.
Well, let me tell you about
He's right back there with John Travolta.
Well, hold on a second. Come on in.
By the way, have you done any work with Olivia? Have you toured with her? Have you done any?
No. I mean,
she's lovely.
I know her, and of course, I've been involved, as many of us have, with some of the charities that are dear to her heart. But a lot of the cancer charities, and she has, sort of therapy centers here. And I did some fundraising. She's lovely, and I guess I mean, we all bump into each other at these moments in our life. I mean, my story is kind of, I'm writing it at the moment. I'm actually doing my autobiography at the moment, and I'm nearly finished. I've got 200,000 words in.
Wow.
It's quite a story, and it will come out later. It's called Just a Boy. So it's kind of, and it's written by Gerard Hughes Sayer, who's my real name. And it's kind of like, he writes about the story of Leo Sayer, because you have to have someone objective.
Right. Yeah, it's like having Vincent Furnier write the Alice Cooper story. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And by the way, Kiss have a song called "Just a Boy," so we're tying in the whole Kiss, Vinny, Poncia. It's
there you
terrific.
Go. You see,
Everything.
Yeah, and you just mentioned
I got my
friend,
Alice
Al
Cooper shirt.
Wow.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, listen, 45 years of endless flight. I mean, where's the time gone, man? I mean, November 5th, 1976, that's the official release date. Is that the official release date, November 5th, 1976? Do you remember the exact date?
I think it was somewhere around there. Yeah. I think
I checked it. I checked it very meticulously last night. I didn't find anything that said November 5th, but I saw that the first single was like October 30th, which sort of was, a week in advance kind of.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to trace it would be Billboard, and then you see the first week it got into the chart.
Yeah.
And usually you go a week before that.
That's right.
Because a song, the way that Warners were pushing this, if it's being promoted properly, it takes a week to get to the charts.
And that's what I was looking for.
100. Yeah.
Let me just ask you one last thing before we leave. Ray Parker Jr., of course, went off and had his hits with Ghostbusters, and then, of course, that became the whole 80s thing. What was that like for you? Were you looking at him going, I knew you could do this solo. You didn't have to be my guitar guy. Like, come on. Like, was there a little bit of, very fatherly pride in there?
Yeah, well, Ray and I are still in touch. We still talk on Facebook and all sorts of things. We follow each other's birthdays and everything. He's a lovely cat. And I spend a lot of time with him. I mean, we ended up writing a lot of songs together. So, in fact, when Radio, his band, started off, the first theme was a song by Leo Sayer and Ray Parker Jr. But of course, the rest of his band needed to get, in on the act. So they dumped that, but it was cool. It was cool. But we had this, I'm your radio, you turn me on. We had this fantastic groovy song, that was going to come out. But it wouldn't have been right. It was better that the guys. And then I did a song called When the Money Runs Out. And all of his, a lot of the guys on Radio were on that record. Mm-hmm. So, we kept in touch and did a lot. I knew Ray from Stevie Wonder's band. And of course, I had playing live with me, although he's not on any of the records, Reggie McBride, who's the guy who played Superstitious. Mm-hmm. And also toured with Stevie for many, many, many years. So, we were all kind of linked. There was a good family of people. And I knew Steve very well. I mean, I'm singing on Love's In Need of Love Today. I'm part of the choir. And, Steve's a beautiful cat.
I'm just looking at like some of the people that you had play on this record, and it's like from from Lee Sklar to, geez, it was Steve Gadd on drums. I mean, between Jeff and Steve, like powerhouse musicians on Behind the Skins. It's like, that's insane.
Well, the Steve Gadd thing came about really because we had You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, and we wanted to do something special with it. Donald Fagen was in the studio with Bill Schnee, who was Richard's previous engineer to Howard Steele, doing this record with us. And Bill Schnee was recording down at Producer's Workshop, and he tipped Richard off that he had, he was doing these tracks with Fagen and Walter down at a Producer's Workshop. And I don't know, I think Donald hit a blank. So I got I was in the studio with Richard in his office, and we were discussing this very thing, and Donald phoned up and just said, "Can I speak to Leo?" And just kind of very, in that kind of dour voice that he's got, just said, "Leo, I got no songs for the guys. Can you take a day in the studio with them while I get myself together?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, that sounds great." So opportunity kind of played straight into our hands, just as we were thinking about how we're going to, how would we ask Donald Fagen if we could have some of his studio time? He gives it to us, So we went in there and reconstructed You Make Me Feel Like Dancing. And we managed to use a lot of the elements. We had two tape machines running together. So we used a lot of the elements that we'd pre-recorded with the band, which would, the previous band. And remade it with Chuck Rainey on bass and Steve on drums. And Steve was beautiful to work with. He was such a lovely cat. We also cut How Much Love in the same session, which was nice. And then I did some other things with Steve, and Steve came and hung out at my house at one time as well, which was great. Stayed with me.
Wow.
Lovely man.
Very cool. Well, Leo, you've said it all. This was absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
These stories are amazing. Endless Flight celebrating the 45th anniversary this year. Looking back now, before we wrap up, is there anything you would have done differently?
Well, I could have kept on with my argument with Richard and never gone into the studio to do it. So it always seems to me that kind of album that was almost not meant to be, and and then kind of like miraculously turned. But Richard knew how to sell a band, to a singer. He just had me walk in that studio, and as soon as I saw and heard those guys playing, those songs like nobody. I mean, we got an outtake of Tears of a Clown, which is fantastic, which I'm trying to get the master of at the moment. In fact, I'm chasing down the record to see if we can do a complete Redux album, because apparently the multi-tracks are around again. So I'm going to get hold of them all. I've got a mix engineer, and we're going to just clean it all up and do a super deluxe Redux kind of.
Oh, that'd be
release,
amazing.
Right. And
and I think it's time to do that, So and then when the 50th anniversary comes around, we'll have something really beautiful to play.
And and you can use this interview as a bonus track.
No, I certainly will. And our mutual friends from Primary Wave really want to kind of use a lot of what we're doing today to link into their kind of campaign. I'm really enjoying working with these guys, and it's just sad with COVID that I've not had a chance to trip over to the States or to Canada and see people over the other side of the water, which is really sad. I'm based in Australia. I'm just about 160 k's, which is about 60 to 70 miles outside Sydney, going towards Canberra, the capital, in the hills. And it's beautiful down here. Lovely life we live.
I so want to go to Australia, but I just want to finish with this. You have a Beatles tribute record coming out.
Yeah, I'm just realizing now I've got these round the wrong way. That's why they're not fitting. Now I can hear you, because I was listening in phase. Oh my God! You were out of phase, boy.
But
there we go.
Yes, that Beatles
Northern
tribute.
Songs.
Yep.
It's called Northern Songs, and it's got that song, Only a Northern Song, in there. Harrison's song. It's very different way of approaching the Beatles. I've done it all here. I tend to do records all by myself these days. I'll show you the studio, actually. Let me just take you around.
Yeah, let's check it out.
So this
home
is the
studio.
Oh God! Oh, hang on, the screen's gone there. Can you see me?
We got you. Don't worry.
Okay, for some reason it's disappeared into something else here. So I've got a vocal booth in here. Yeah,
Look at that.
I don't know if you can see that very well, but
yes, we can.
That's incredible Lafon microphone in there. And then my little center of operations is kind of here.
Wow.
So all acoustic, and then there's the mic room.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I play everything myself. I do the whole record. There's no other people on it.
Right.
Which is a very weird thing to do, but I love it.
So what are you cutting
I'm the
first?
guy who wrote
Drums
One
and
Man
then
Band,
so you're cutting drums first and then keys, or what's the process for you?
all sampled, and I make my own samples. It's all
programming everything.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound electronic. It sounds real. It sounds like there's humans involved. And I've done 3 albums now like this. And the Beatles project has been going all the way through this. So it was a way of me teaching myself how to do this. But the tracks are in. You're going to like the tracks when it comes. It's coming in November. And it's kind of, things like Eleanor Rigby sounds like Beat It.
Wow.
So, or Billie Jean, rather.
That's cool.
So it's dun, 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 Eleanor Rigby. So they're very different interpretations. They're different. Can't Buy Me Love is all slowed down.
Good.
Girl sounds like Prince.
You're supposed to make it your own. That's what a good covers record is. If
I
it's
think
just
so.
Cut and paste,
I follow the Todd Rundgren approach. I mean, if it's there, if you can change it and you can shift it, do it.
Yep.
So and it's bringing a lot of grooves into the Beatles and anyway, there's 19 tracks, 2 different versions of Eleanor Rigby, and it's feeling good. We've just done the artwork is just about done. So,
did you cover yesterday?
Yes, I have, and it's done in Cuban style.
Nice.
So it's kind of sounds like Buena Vista Social Club.
Wow,
that would be cool.
But for a long time, Yesterday was known as the most covered song. It was in the Guinness Book of World Records as the most covered song.
Totally.
So I had to ask. Oh, great, perfect.
Absolutely, and there's Hey Jude that starts off with a harmonica and acoustic guitar like Bob Dylan.
Nice.
So it's all kind of almost like
That's very different.
An early Bob Dylan song. But anyway, it's all been fun.
Mhm. Well, that's what it's about. It's about having fun, right?
Yeah, and I think the record so far, everybody I've played it to, they just start smiling immediately, which
Yeah.
is a nice thing to happen. So we're having fun. I just hope Paul McCartney likes it, because he used to be a friend. He may not be a friend after this.
That's just the worst, right? Like, oh, did you hear Leo's shit cover? Oh, can't call him back.
Yeah, I used to like that guy.
What did he do to my songs? How dare he?
John, you're next.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just Leo burning his bridges one cover at a time.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, I'm 73 now. I think I can get away with it. I'm not scared of anything anymore.
Yeah. Who cares?
That's great.
Yeah. But I'm still making records. The voice is still great. I've still got the hair thinning a little bit, but not too bad.
What more do you want?
And yeah, the voice is still there. I'm quite amazed. We actually did on the next album after Endless Flight was Thunder in My Heart, and there was a song on there called Easy to Love, and we just got a guy to speed it up and do a mix, actually sounding like the original. It's a remix, but he's managed to kind of speed it up, and a team has done it, and I had to do a new vocal, and I was amazed that I could still make the notes exactly the same as 44 years ago.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
You've said it all. This is terrific.
Leo, let's wrap it up there. And this was amazing.
Yeah,
45 years of Endless Flight. Make sure you go and check it out. This is amazing, Leo. This was so great to meet you and chat, and so many stories. Next time we'll do another hour next time.
Fantastic. Yes.
Well, we'll talk about the Beatles album. I want to do the Beatles album.
Please do.
Song by song.
Yeah. Let's stay in touch, and when we can go from here.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks a lot, Leo.
Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Cheers, guys.
An all-new episode of the Jeremy White Podcast, Tuesday at noon. Available wherever you stream. Catch up on past interviews and episodes on demand now. Subscribe so you don't miss any of it.